Picture this. You're standing on the ice, but instead of looking down at a cute, waddling little bird, you're looking straight up into the eyes of a prehistoric giant. Yeah, seriously. 37 million years ago, a creature known as the Colossus penguin roamed the Earth, standing a staggering 7 feet tall. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're looking at one of the most fascinating, extreme, and just surprisingly diverse groups of animals on the planet. I'm so excited to share this with you because, as you'll see, there's way more to these birds than just cute waddles and snowy landscapes.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start by going beyond the ice, then we'll examine how they're built for the ocean, dive into some romance and rookeries, and look at surviving a changing world. And finally, stick around for our rapid-fire penguin FAQs at the end as a fun reward for hanging out with us.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. Beyond the ice. More than just Antarctica.
When we think of penguins, we almost always picture them surrounded by these massive, towering icebergs, right? But their origins actually tell a completely different story. The common ancestor of all modern penguins didn't start out in the freezing Antarctic wastes at all. Actually, scratch that. They first showed up off the temperate coasts of Australia, New Zealand, and a few South Pacific islands around 22 million years ago. So, while some eventually migrated south to conquer the cold, their evolutionary roots are literally firmly planted in much warmer waters. From those early ancestors, penguins have evolved into 18 distinct species alive today, and the diversity here is just jaw-dropping. On one end of the spectrum, you've got the mighty emperor penguin, basically the heavyweight champion. They stand almost 4 feet tall and weigh in at over 77 pounds. But then, on the total opposite end, we have the little blue penguin, sometimes called the fairy penguin. This tiny little bird stands a mere 13 inches tall and weighs just 2.6 pounds. That is a massive size gap, and it perfectly showcases how these birds have adapted to fill entirely different environmental niches over millions of years.
Section 2. Built for the ocean. Superpowered seabirds. We generally think of penguins as cute and, maybe a little clumsy on land. But make no mistake, beneath those feathers, they are absolute marvels of evolutionary engineering. And this brilliantly illustrates why. Look at their classic black and white coloring. It's not just a fancy tuxedo. It's a highly effective survival tool called countershading. From above, their dark backs blend right into the dark depths of the ocean, completely hiding them from predators. And from below, their white bellies blend seamlessly with the bright light coming from the surface. Plus, they're built for total extremes. The emperor penguin is a deep-sea champion, capable of plunging over 1,500 feet down into the freezing dark ocean just to hunt.
And hey, they aren't just deep divers, they are incredibly fast, too. While your average penguin cruises around at, say, 15 to 25 miles per hour, the Gentoo penguin is the undisputed speed champion. Because their bodies are shaped like aerodynamic little torpedoes and they use their incredibly strong paddle-like flippers to generate thrust, the Gentoo can hit an astonishing 30 miles per hour underwater. They even use their webbed feet as rudders to steer at those crazy high speeds.
But speed and depth? That's really just the beginning of their biological superpowers. First off, that emperor penguin making those 1,500-foot dives, it can hold its breath for up to 22 minutes while scavenging underwater. 22 minutes! Second, to survive the brutal, biting cold, penguins boast about 80 short, overlapping feathers per square inch. That is more than any other bird on the planet, and it perfectly traps warm air while locking out the freezing water. But honestly, here's my absolute favorite fact. They sneeze out salt water. When they swallow seawater while hunting, a special supraorbital gland right behind their eyes filters the salt straight out of their bloodstream, and they literally sneeze it out to survive. I mean, every single inch of a penguin is perfectly engineered for its environment.
Section 3. Romance and rookeries. Social lives revealed.
So how do you find love, or even just find your family, in a crowd of literally thousands of identical-looking neighbors? Well, if you're an Adelie penguin, it all starts with a very serious quest for the perfect pebble. Because they build their nests on rocky, icy shores, male Adelies will waddle incredibly long distances from receding glaciers just to find smooth, perfectly shaped stones. They carry these prized pebbles in their beaks all the way back to the colony and present them to a female. It's basically their version of offering a diamond ring. If she accepts it, that single pebble becomes the foundation of their brand new nest. Now, communication is absolutely crucial once that pair is formed. Just look at these two king penguins intensely communicating with each other. Fun fact, all but 2 species of penguins breed in massive colonies. Just to give you a sense of the sheer scale here, Zawodowski Island down in Antarctica hosts around 2 million breeding chinstrap penguins
2 million. To find their specific mate or chick in that deafening sea of identical birds, couples use highly distinct individualized calls. And interestingly, some of these calls aren't exactly what you'd call musical. The African penguin is actually nicknamed the jackass penguin by scientists because its call sounds exactly like a loud donkey's bray. It might not sound pretty to our ears, but hey, it's the sound of home to them.
Section 4. Surviving a Changing World, Conservation. For all their incredible resilience and perfect evolutionary design, penguins are currently facing some very real, unprecedented environmental challenges. Of the 18 recognized species worldwide, a sobering 50% are currently considered threatened or endangered. According to the IUCN Red List, 10 species fall into these vulnerable categories, which actually makes penguins the second most threatened bird group in the whole world, right behind the albatross. The data points to a combination of things: climate change, overfishing depleting their food sources, poaching, and habitat disruption are the primary drivers here. Species like the African penguin and the Galapagos penguin have seen particularly rapid population declines in recent years. It's a clear illustration of how shifts in the ocean environment directly impact even the greatest master adapters.
Section 5. Penguin FAQs, the rapid-fire round. All right, it's time to bring the energy right back up for our promised rapid-fire FAQ section. Let's test what you think you know about these amazing birds. First question up. Do penguins and polar bears live together? We see them hanging out on holiday greeting cards and in cartoons all the time. Take a second. What do you think? The answer is a resounding no. They are never neighbors. In the wild, penguins are native almost exclusively to the Southern Hemisphere, while polar bears strictly inhabit the Arctic Circle way up in the Northern Hemisphere. They are literally oceans apart. The only place you are ever going to see them together is at your local zoo. Let's move to FAQ number 2. Given that they don't hang out with polar bears, do all penguins live in freezing cold climates like Antarctica? Again, no way. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it shows, while a few species do actually live far south in the deep Antarctic cold, others completely thrive along the cool coasts of Africa, Australia, and South America. But the most extreme outlier has to be the Galapagos penguin. It lives in a warm region off the coast of Ecuador, right at and even slightly north of the equator.
Okay, FAQ number 3. I'd say this one is an absolute must-know for your next pub quiz. What exactly is a group of penguins called?
Well, the answer actually depends on what they're doing at the time. If the group is swimming together in the water, they're called a raft. But if they're walking together on land, they are called a waddle. You can also use terms like a rookery, a colony, or a huddle. But personally, I think waddle is absolutely perfect. Finally, our last rapid-fire question. Considering how remote and isolated their habitats usually are wild penguins afraid of humans when they encounter us? Once again, the answer is no, because penguins evolved on remote land masses and islands, relatively free from land predators. They never really developed a fear of things walking toward them on two legs. If you visit them in the wild and stay completely still, they're naturally curious and will likely just waddle right up to investigate you. In fact, humans and penguins can get along so incredibly well that one king penguin named Sir Nils Olav, living at the Edinburgh Zoo, was actually knighted by the King of Norway. He even holds the rank of Colonel-in-Chief. How cool is that? And that brings us to our final takeaway. With all this incredible biology, their quirky romantic rituals, and their completely fearless nature, it's really no wonder we love them so much. We actually love them so much that they have 2 separate days dedicated to them every single year: Penguin Awareness Day on January 20th and World Penguin Day on April 25th. So the question I want to leave you with today is this. Now that you know about their 30-mile-per-hour underwater speeds, their pebble proposals, and their built-in camouflage, how will you be celebrating these superpowered seabirds on their next dedicated holiday? Thank you so much for exploring this explainer with me, and as always, keep your curiosity wild.